Who wants to start? Me again, huh?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. All right. Let's break down our track, the second track of our EP, Cloud Decks. I think Matt, this started with you, right? You basically wrote this part in like one day and sent it. Oh, I don't know how long it took you, but you sent it to us one day. What were you doing when you kind of came up with this?
Yeah, a lot of accidents. So I think accidents are something that comes up a lot in our band. One of the things I often do is lay out a palette of chords. So I'll try and set myself a little task of trying to write 16 chords that I might use, not necessarily a chord progression, but 16 chords that I'll kind of lay out and enjoy. And I happened to hit the sequencer running, which was basically firing off these chords. And it so the main riff you hear, the is a very quick fire string of chords that just happen to kind of fall out in a nice progression.
And it was the gap part of the progression as well, or did you add?
I put the gap in just to give you a bit of a breather in between. But
otherwise, it would have just been constant.
Yeah.
Let's have a listen.
And playing around with the patch, so it kind of sounded sort of ethereal and soft, and I felt it had an interesting vibe. And then I started playing around with another synth, which can only play one note at a time, and it's getting the same notes, the same chords being fed into it, but it has to randomly just choose a note that it can work with. So these chords, I think, each chord's probably got 5 or 6 different notes. So the synth that's playing the main kind of melody is just trying to randomly pick up notes and just firing them out.
So this is the lower register stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not me playing I'm not playing a separate composition or whatever. It's all still coming from those
same sequence,
original chords.
Yeah, right. And it's picking a note, and that's why it kind of jumps up and down.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And then I was jamming with this. I was enjoying it. I was having a good evening of it, and started tweaking dials, getting things to sound good, putting some delay on and holding the delay. And I thought, I'm going to record it. I'm going to send it to you guys. Just a weeknight evening's jam. And then we had it 2 minutes 34, little snippet of
which
an idea,
which is the final track length as well. Because we didn't actually change anything for yours, except we added a couple of things. So you sent this to me, or sent this to us, and uploaded it to SoundCloud on the 26th of September. And I mustn't have been doing something that day, or it mustn't have been doing anything that day, because I picked up this and went, this is interesting, I can write drums to this, and wrote a drum line to it that was basically following it, note for note, with a few little gaps. And I think this is the first take of the drum. And that sounds a bit crap, but because it's samples.
So tell us about that. So that's not your drum kit, is it?
That is
your drum kit.
Yeah. So I don't know when we did this, maybe the start of COVID or when we knew we were going into lockdown.
I think it was because the kit was at my house, and you wanted a way that you could come up with ideas that sounded like your...
Yeah, because I've got your electronic drum kit at my house, and my analog kit was at your house. So I would always practice on the electronic kit, which sounds terrible, and it doesn't sound like me. It doesn't sound anything, and it doesn't feel like playing an actual drum kit. So to compose stuff and know that it's going to work in the mix, I individually sampled very light, very sort of medium, heavy, and like really smacking out the drum hits for individual drums: snare drum, high tom, medium tom, low tom, kick drum, hi-hats, cymbals, ride. And I created this instrument in Ableton called the Dave machine, which has all these individual samples in it. But anyway, then I literally painted this this sort of linear drum line. And linear drumming is where you don't play more than one note at a time. So typically when you're playing drums, you're usually playing hi-hat and kick drum together, or kick drum and snare drum and hi-hats together. And it's usually you're doubling up lots of notes because, so in this one, there's only a handful of times where it plays two notes at once, but the goal was to try and create a linear drum line. And it obviously follows the synth. And even the tom hits are trying to follow the synth notes, so it's complementary to the chords. So it's almost like the drums trying to almost be a melodic instrument. So programmed that and sent it to you guys. That was the same day. Later on, when I had to come back and record it, I had to learn how to play this linear drum line that I'd never played before, which included using hi-hat pedals to play the hi-hats, because I'm all over the drum kit and can't like flip back and forth fast enough. But eventually figured out how to play it all in one live take, so the live drums sort of sound more like this. And so then I think it went to you next, Steve.
Yeah, so I think you sent that
same day
within days of Matt.
No, I looked at the dates. It's the same date.
Oh,
so
it's actually the same day.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mustn't have been doing anything that day, because that was the first idea. Basically, that was the drum line.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first, I really liked it, and I didn't feel that it needed any changes. And the first thing, the most obvious thing to me was that you had this, you've obviously got the synth and the drums are quite busy at the start of the phrase, and then you have this sort of pause where the synth completely stops and then there's sort of very minimal drums. So the first idea that I had for the bass was that it would be a sort of a call and answer style. The synth was so busy, there was no point in trying to compete with that. So I thought I'll just come up with something that was sort of short and punchy that would sit in those little breaks. So the other thing was that because the drums were so minimalist at that point, I knew that I had to have some sort of driving bass line as well, just to sort of keep the energy going and keep the song moving. So that was sort of the origins of the idea for the bass line.
Let's listen to that for a sec. That sounds bad.
Yeah, it's an old recording, but interestingly, there are no changes. The first idea that I shared was the one that is still on the final.
Yeah, that was 5 days later. So this whole track was written start to finish 2.5 minutes within 5 days, which has got to be some kind of record for us, because normally it takes us months or longer.
Yeah, well, I wish they were all as easy as this. So that part of it came together really quickly. You guys were happy with it, and then the other thing that followed was I felt that, basically because there's no synth and there's just the bass and it's sort of quite heavy, it felt probably a little bit dark and it needed something else. So I had this idea to come up with some piano riffs, continuing on with this idea of the call and answer. So it would only be playing when the synth was not playing, and the idea was that you had this bass that was really heavy and driving, and that the piano was going to be the contrast to that. So
right.
much higher register and a lot lighter. So the very first idea I had was that because I had this ascending bass line, that I'd have a descending piano line, just to keep it interesting. So that was the first riff that I came up with, was based on that, and then I just started experimenting. I came up with a whole bunch of, maybe a dozen different short little riffs, and then I just chose the best, what I thought were the best four, and I really liked this idea that you had this bass line that was consistent for the entire song, and then the variety is introduced through the piano. So
okay, let's listen to that.
The idea of that.
And then I think the only other thing that happened was I borrowed someone's pedal, like echo pedal, and ran the piano through it, and we got this like pretty mono-y cool effect from and it just kind of builds these artifacts up. It just gives it a bit of interest, and then you really hear it towards the end when it's...
And the other thing that we did to warm up the piano sound was, I'm pretty sure we ran it through the Sebetron valves, just to sort of give it some more like harmonics, and just give the sound a bit more character. And I think we wanted to have the piano sound like it was a bit more aged than the original,
more vintage.
Than the original. So
like recorded through a dictaphone or something, and then contrast, like doubled up with the much cleaner sound. And it's such a simple track, I think. It came together so easily. Like you said, I wish all of them could be like that. But the only other thing is that it started with a different name, and then I think you named it.
That's right. So Matt touched on this idea of sort of an ethereal sound to the synth, and I had just happened to be reading this article about the planet Venus, and it was talking about in the atmosphere they have all these different layers of clouds, which they refer to as cloud decks. And that if you care to look, there's some amazing sort of imagery of that. Which I really liked, and I just thought it suited the song. And the original title, I had actually said, Venusian cloud decks, but you thought that was a bit of a mouthful, which it is. So we just reduced it to cloud decks.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to say. Like, it's like such a simple track. It's pretty much it.
Yeah, we got rid of that pedal, right?
What, sorry?
We got rid of that pedal, though.
Great. We can't use it ever again. Did you sell it?
Yeah, it went to the swap shop.
Brilliant. So you're one and done.
What was that, the reverb?
Yeah, that Joyo Blue.
That's right. Wow, okay. Yep. Yeah, gear does not stay in our possession for long. Cool.
It's all part of the churn.
Yep. So yeah, that's Cloud Decks.
Okay.
Cool.
I think that's it.
All right.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next one.